health for granted, essentially. When we're feeling good, we don't really think about it. But when something's missing and something's not functioning well, that's when we start to suffer. And at that point we realise, hold on, I wish I could get my health back. I don't care about anything else. I want my health back. There's some alarming data out there. Fertility had declined massively over the last 50 years. So sperm counts in men are down by over 50% in the last 50 years. So are testosterone levels. So for example, the average 22-year-old has the same testosterone levels as a 67-year-old.
What is Athenase?
It is a food blend made with plants, mushrooms, prebiotics, and natural extracts. My branding and the message is to everyone to adopt your traditional gender roles, because when society has a bit more structure, and we all have structure and identities, then we all kind of have a sense of freedom.
What would you say is your top practical tip for being more of a better man?
The first thing is...
Saj Naeem is the founder of a company called Salients, and they produce a product called Athenase. And if you've followed me for any length of time, you'll know and you would have heard of me talk about Athenase. Athenase is a superfood blend that's formulated specifically for men. And this is why I'm very excited to get Saj on the podcast, where we talk about his journey to getting to a point of creating this successful company. We also talk about what's actually inside Athenase, what makes it healthy, but most interestingly, why he has specifically targeted this product for men and the philosophies and theories he has around his branding. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. Let's get straight into it. Saj Naeem. Salients with your product Athenase is now a multi-million pound business. But I know you've had quite an interesting story that has led you up to the point where you are now. Can you share with us this story, and particularly going over or focusing on the parts that were most pivotal to your success and that have really made Athenase what it is today?
Wow, big question, and it's quite a long journey actually. So for background, I'm 31 years old, and I actually started my journey when I was, my first year of secondary school, so in year 7, around the age of 10 years old. I've always had like quite an entrepreneurial mindset. So, at 10 years old, I was kind of looking online, Googling how to make money. And I came across this concept of paid surveys. So you'd answer surveys and get paid a small amount for your time, and presumably your surveys were to help inform decisions for businesses. I spent months trying to do that, made a little bit of money, a few pounds, I would say, but that kind of gave me an idea of that the online world was just kind of up and coming at the time, 2004. There's a lot of opportunity here. I didn't really fully grasp it at that point, but as a child, basically, you kind of focus your attention on one thing, and then you divert your attention to something else. In my case, it was games and just going to school, just living that life as a child. My father as well, was an immigrant from Pakistan, same with my mother, and every now and then he'll go to Pakistan, and he'd bring back video games for me and my brother to play with. And I just thought, why not I try and sell these games, because they were quite popular games, but they were pirated. And, in the early days at school, I used to sell these games to my friends, and, made a little bit of money, lunch money here and there. But I found it's quite funny, actually. A lot of the games didn't work from memory. And, our friends would ask for refunds, and, I gave them the refund. And that was like my first experience of customer service. All the while I was kind of studying as well. So I kind of gave up on the idea of starting a business at a young age. I thought I'd just focus on school. Then when I was around, I think 14 or 15, I started buying. I thought, let me give eBay a go. I see that the blog posts on the internet about how people are making so much money drop shipping and becoming power sellers on eBay. And then I just thought, I want to try this as well. We got a bank account from HSBC at the time. They came into our school and set up a bank account for everyone. And I just thought, okay, let me try this. So I ended up buying an ebook and reselling it, and people would buy it for like £1 for each transaction. It was really crazy to me that I could sell something online on a platform and people would buy it and I'd make money off of it. I kind of scaled that a little bit. I kept buying other ebooks and reselling it. But to get the money up to save the money to make that purchase in the first place, I saved around 3 weeks worth of lunch money, which was around £25. But again, the same thing happened, which was customers weren't happy with the product, and they asked for refunds. And then somehow, some way, through all the fees that I had for eBay, I ended up losing my £25 lunch money. So I gave up again. Then at 16, I still kept seeing online people making money online by dropshipping and all kinds of e-commerce businesses. So I thought, let me try again one more time, but this time with a physical product that people can actually use. Around this time, the iPhone came out as well. So I ended up buying cheap knockoff iPod headphones from China on eBay as well, like a bulk pack. I spent £20 again on my own money on this, and it arrived. And then I listed it for sale at a high price, and then it was something like 20 units of headphones. And then I ended up selling them for £70 and like made around £50 in gross margin. And I couldn't believe it, and that kind of really just confirmed the idea to me that actually this is possible, and that even though I failed quite a few times along the way, that didn't really matter. Like I shouldn't have given up at that stage and waited years in between each attempt. So then I thought, okay, let me go and try and scale this. I went onto a website called DHgate, which is like Alibaba, a marketplace to connect wholesalers, manufacturers with customers in the West. I ended up buying a bulk set of fake iPod headphones. They looked exactly the same as the original pair. And of course, as a child, I didn't really care whether it was infringing on their trademarks or, it was a legal issue. I was just experimenting. But over the course of my GCSEs, I ended up doing something like £30,000 in sales, selling this one item and making a few £1,000s in profit. And then I started dropshipping other items. I kept researching and finding more products to add into my eBay business. I was selling like mobile phone cases and MP3 players, knockoff variations of the iPod Nano that came out at that time as well. Then the iPad came out and I ended up dropshipping iPad tablets from China, which were absolutely horrible to use. Like the touchscreen would barely work. But then, my parents weren't quite happy about that. They were like, I should be focusing on my studies, even though I was doing okay. But I'd come home from school, and the first thing I would do would be like, I'd go through my orders and print them out, pack them and post them. And then I'd come home, have my dinner, do my homework, and then play games all day or the rest of the evening. And but at that time, I was just thinking to myself, I'm making money here whilst going to school. I should just focus on this. Because I remember this one moment, my biology teacher came into our room whilst we were being taught by another teacher. Our class was particularly rowdy, making a lot of noise, not paying attention. And then she came in, told us all off, and was saying to us, I make £30 an hour, for example. And, I don't have to deal with this. She was quite upset. I'm trying to recall something that happened 15 years ago, but it just got me thinking, hold on, you're making £30 an hour, but I just made £200 whilst I'm at school. And it was just kind of mind-boggling to me that like this was going on the side. But anyway, a couple of years later, university applications were around the corner, so I kind of prioritized that. Went to university and paused my e-commerce business at that point. I put myself, I had savings at university and, paid for driving lessons, bought a computer for university, all those kinds of things, and the money that I made in my later teen years. But then I thought, let me focus on my education. I studied psychology at university. And that played quite a huge role in the way I kind of view the world today, and how it informs my decisions in business, how I communicate with people, and the strategies that I use for marketing as well. They're always considering the psychology of the consumer in mind as well. Like how would basically, how would I see, if I put myself in the customer's shoes, how would I see my business and my product? And then I kind of account for that with my strategy. So yeah, there was no business going on at university. Live my life, learn to be independent. Learn to cook, clean, all kinds of things with adulting, and as you move out and be independent. But then after university, I thought, let me start up again with my e-commerce business. But shortly after starting, I was banned from eBay because I was trying to find tactics to save on shipping costs. I wasn't using the right shipping method, and customers weren't receiving their parcels. And the orders were so fast straight away that by the time I realized there was a problem, dozens and dozens of orders weren't reaching the customers, and each customer was leaving a negative rating on my eBay store. And after enough of that, the automated system recognized that, hold on, customers aren't happy with the seller. Instant ban permanently. And I realized this whilst I was working. I got a notification. I was behind a bar, working as a part-time job. My second job, actually. I was working at a luxury menswear store and behind the bar in the evenings. I got a notification saying, "Oh, you've been banned from eBay." And I just couldn't believe it. I always kind of saw this as my biggest opportunity to make money outside of like a normal career, because from a young age, I really didn't want to work a normal job, like a normal 9 to 5 job. Whilst I think in our current society, a 9 to 5 job is very stable and offers a lot of opportunity for most people. For me, I felt like it's wasn't going to give me the life that I needed, because I saw my parents were quite elderly from a young age compared to my peers. There were also health problems in the family, and I realized that I needed to be present for my family, make a bit more money to kind of take care of things. So that was quite a huge blow to me, because I felt like the entire world came crashing down, and the potential to not have, or the potential to have that lifestyle that I wanted had kind of faded. So then at that point, I just decided, to work a normal job. I left both my jobs at the menswear store and the bar, because I found a new job working in a marketing role for a large agency called IPG Media Brands. It's quite a large agency serving large clients all around the world, and I was working in the SEO department, which is search engine optimization, helping businesses rank on Google and improve the visibility there. And whilst I enjoyed it, I realized that I was kind of struggling with the idea of, you 5 days out of 7 per week, you're told to come into the office, work specific hours. You're told when to go to lunch, and you have to ask for permission to take time off. And even then, you're only allocated a certain number of days per year. And that concept, I didn't really resonate with. I really struggled with that, because there'll be days where I just didn't want to go to work, or I needed a break because I wasn't feeling too good. But then you still have to turn up to work and get the job done. Obviously, that built a mindset of resilience to some degree in my head, whilst the family was having their own kind of issues on the side. But I just kept going. But then until one day, whilst I was working that job, I got a notification from eBay saying, it's like a wider policy change, that they're now letting on previously suspended accounts to now trade on eBay again. And then literally within 24 hours, I came up with a business plan, because it was October at that time. And I knew that it was peak selling season, like just around the corner. So I had to action my decisions quickly. Like I was unbanned on eBay, therefore straight away find a concept for a business and find a supplier. I did all of that within 24 hours, and the concept was, okay, I'm going to start a toy drone store. Sounds random, I know, but I went through a lot of various different avenues when it comes to side hustles and e-commerce businesses. And it's all part of the journey to Salients as well, so I'll get there in a bit as well. I ended up buying various different toy drones from AliExpress, and they arrived into the UK within a few weeks. I took photographs of everything and built a website and an eBay store again, listed everything, and then it did phenomenally well. Like, it did really well. Over the course of the next 12 months, I did something like £120,000 in sales and made something like £20,000 in net profit, which for me at 23 years old, I was really happy with. Unfortunately, though, at that time, the crypto market, that's my first time being exposed to investments and the concept of investing. And I took all the money out, took some more of my savings, put it all into the crypto market at the top of the 2017 bull market. And I ended up within a few months losing £35,000 plus being £4,000 in my overdraft. And I think it was around this point to like a few more years onwards from that point is where I started to experience a decline in my health. I didn't really feel it at the time, but the fact that I lost all the savings that I built up from my early teen years to now being a few years into my career in my 20s really impacted me psychologically. This was 2018. I'd started a new job working in Hemel Hempstead for an e-commerce company. They were selling, all kinds of home appliances on Amazon. My job was to help scale their eBay efforts and their website efforts. Try and bring some of the business away from Amazon onto eBay and the website, because for any business, having a single point of failure is high risk and very stressful for the business owner. And so that was my job, to kind of bring the sales more in line with the Amazon sales. But the issue with this job was that the commute was so long and so unreliable because of the traffic on the M25 or through London during rush hour, that sometimes I could be at work, minimum it will take 1 hour, but then sometimes it could be 2 hours, and then on the rare occasion it could be between 3 and 4 hours. And I'd never know on that day what the traffic's going to be like. But I was quite resilient in mindset wise. I kind of refused to give up. Unfortunately, around that time as well, I hurt my back quite badly. I herniated 2 discs in my lower back, which I think we spoke about as well on your podcast when you were my guest. And so I was in the car, wearing a padded belt behind my lower back to kind of give it a bit of cushioning and support whilst I was sitting down for these long hour drives. But I was really struggling with recovery there, and I wouldn't really sit down. So from April of 2017 to October 2017, I didn't sit down. Even going to the toilet, I would like slowly like use the toilet seat to like just hover above it, because sitting down was just too painful. You get sciatica, the nerve pain, and all kinds of associated issues with that. So at work, I was standing up the entire time. So a combination of those kind of factors, alongside not having any time for myself. I didn't have a social life, no friends outside of work, wasn't dating either. I was spending all my time working. Weekends I was trying to escape as well, starting side hustles. I felt quite trapped, commuting 2 hours a day on average to work through traffic. Then, not enjoying my job. I really didn't enjoy it at all. Hated it. I was starting to have health problems, with the lower back. Mentally, I was kind of crushed. I didn't really understand what was going on with my life at that point. And, it was down a lot of money. And then I was still quite motivated. Like, I didn't let that phase me too much, even though my body was suffering. Mentally, I was still quite focused. Like, I knew that this can't be it forever. Like, I'd see some of my colleagues, they've been at this job for like 20, 30 years, and they just repeat the same routine over and over again. And I was just like, how have you guys done this? It's almost like you just switched off completely for a large chunk of your life. And then you're just coming here every day, working back home, repeat endlessly for your entire life. And I was like, no, I can't have this. Meanwhile, my family life wasn't also too great. There's a lot of health issues mentally, people were struggling quite a lot. And I just thought, I can't keep going like this. So yeah, negative thoughts started coming as well for me. But one thing that really held me together was just the idea of going to the gym every morning. I'd wake up around 3:30 in the morning to get to the gym for around 4 o'clock. I'd be there for like 1.5 hours, 2 hours, and I come home, get ready, and then drive 2 hours to work, and begin that routine. But that was really the only thing that kept me sane, because I knew that if I could make progress in the gym in some way, then at least that's one thing that will kind of keep going in my life, and there'll be progress there. And that kind of gave me the motivation and the ability to realize that actually I can make a change in my life no matter what's going on. So in a way, fitness and gym was like an anchor for me at that point, at that moment when I didn't really have anything going on. And this is why I preach a lot in Salients, in the advertising and the organic content, to prioritize, like training and, because for men in particular, I feel like it makes a huge difference to how we feel. Like a lot of things can be going wrong, but the gym never really changes, and you can keep making progress in there. And that gives you some stability in your life, and everything else just going so chaotic. So for me, that was a saving grace at that time. And then, a few colleagues of mine and I, we left the job together and started an agency. And that did really well. It was a marketing agency. Up until this point, I had a lot of experience in e-commerce and marketing and advertising. So I funneled all of that experience and lessons into this agency with my colleagues' network, with businesses. We did quite well. And one of our clients, which we became exclusive with, was a supplement company in the US. At the time when we joined them, I think they were valued around $20 million. And they didn't really have a marketing team as such, or was bare bones at the time. And then when we joined, we took them over COVID from a 20 million valuation to almost to a 400 million valuation, just purely because their sales skyrocketed in combination with marketing efforts during the COVID period. And it was during this time that I made finally some progress in terms of my finances, made a decent amount of money. And all the while, I never really gave up on the crypto markets because I had a general distrust of the government. And this concept of why is life so hard in terms of making money and providing for your family, like it shouldn't be like this. And I started learning more about economics and what Bitcoin, for example, offers to the population in terms of having a money which is a little bit outside the control of fiscal policy and it isn't confiscatable by the government, and it offers hope to members of our planet, in other countries in the world where their currencies have been completely destroyed by their governments, and they're going through hyperinflation, and their money's in savings in their native currency, but it's just worthless over time. And Bitcoin seems to do really well over long enough periods, and I still maintain my belief in that. So I kept funneling all my money into that, and made a reasonable amount of money. Whilst I was making more money from my day job, as a marketing agency owner, just kept funneling everything into it. Even though I knew I had taxes to pay next year, I took all that money and still put it into the crypto markets because I saw the tax money that I would owe in the next year as a loan from the government for free. And I thought, why not? It's a risk, but it's something that I'm willing to take because there's no other choice. You either get ahead or you don't. And this is kind of the risk that men have to take care of their families and the communities. It's unfortunate, but this is like the way I feel the world is at the moment. You have to take massive risks to get ahead. And if you fail, you fail. And you disappear from existence. It is what it is. Cold world of natural selection and all that stuff. But
Just wanted to stop the episode just for 1 second. If you are enjoying this episode, then please can you help me by hitting that subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube, or if you're watching on Spotify, then please hit that follow button. It really, really helps this show, helps me to make even better episodes and get better guests on. Thank you so much for watching. Let's get straight back to it. Well, one of the reasons why I love hearing about people's stories is because quite often what we see is the surface of where people are. And what's quite interesting about your story is that, and I hear it over and over again in other people like yourself that have achieved something, is that there are many, probably more failures than there are successes along the way. And there are lots of points within your story that I can see that if that didn't happen, you probably wouldn't be where you are right now, would you? But what's interesting about you that I think is unlike a lot of, well, let's say most people, is that you're quite willing to take the risk. Where do you think that comes from? Because obviously in your head, you're probably thinking that the benefits of this are far greater than the risk or the risk of this not happening. You were quite determined, weren't you?
Yes, absolutely. So to be honest, I have a very pessimistic view of the future. I think, the world that we live in goes through cycles where there are good times and there are bad times. And I feel like we're kind of just entering the bad times now. And even though I know people have suffered the last few years, I don't think we're seeing anything quite bad yet. And everything that I've always done is with that foresight in mind that I think in the future things will be quite tough for a lot of people in terms of survival, in terms of being able to provide for their families. And all the risks that I take are calculated as a result of that. I need to make more money. I need to acquire more resources as quickly as possible. And it's just that fear of the future mostly.
Why the pessimism? Where did that come from?
So I feel like it's a therapy session now, which is good. A lot of content will come from this, good content will come from this. But in my early teen years, I saw that firstly, my father was quite elderly compared to most of my peers. And he had quite a few health problems. He had 2 heart attacks when we were quite young. One was my mum was pregnant, and he's had diabetes and he's got liver disease and all kinds of issues. And he's still, taking along, still going, almost 80 now, but he's still, pushing along. But that made me realize at the time that I kind of questioned when I was young, what if he doesn't make it, he passes away? Who's going to take care of the family? There's no one there. My mum was a single mother, would be a single mother, but she was a housewife. She didn't have a job. She was taking care of the family. That was her job. One of the most important jobs in the world. We can talk about gender roles as well later on, but I was just thinking to myself, what do we do in that scenario? Well, then the only solution is me, because I'm the eldest, and my brother's ill as well. Then what do we do? So then, I realized that going to school, not making any money here, how is this productive in the long run? Which kind of inspired me also to kind of work on these side hustles and try and make something of myself quickly. And it's fortunate that my family turned out okay. Like my dad didn't pass away; he was working well into my 20s, but it was just that threat mitigation strategy that I developed from that age, which made me start thinking more about the future, like constantly. And since the rise of social media as well, we're constantly exposed to all kinds of information about the world. And I believe that being plugged into that, whilst it has its consequences in terms of mental health and, attention span, for example, is limited when you're consuming so much information all the time from all over the place. But it gives you an insight into how the world is operating and what's going on in the world. And then for me, like different parts of the puzzle started coming together. And seeing the 2008 credit crunch and recession, when my dad was made redundant at that point, made me realize that actually, hold on, life isn't a smooth journey. It's actually very chaotic, and a lot of things can go wrong. even if in the moment you feel okay, things can really definitely just go wrong. Like you might have a comfy job for 10 years, 20, 30 years, or whatever it is. But then one day you just wake up and it's gone. And then what do you do? Well, this is why I believe in, when you're young, you have no savings, you haven't got much money coming in. And the opportunity cost of that £1 that you make is massive. So my mindset was always save as much money as I possibly can, and invest it, put it to some good use. And I used to go to my job every single day. I cycled to work. I didn't like get public transport. I'd go to a budget gym. I wouldn't really go out. There's like no subscription, no Spotify, no Netflix back then. My first job was I was earning £14,000, like my proper job, working after university, and that was on probationary period. But then at the end of the year, I worked out to be 16k. But I was still saving most of my salary living at home. I just didn't go out. I didn't really eat out much. Like I said, no subscriptions. And that gave me a good basis. Like the more money I make, the more comfortable I feel that everything's going to be okay, essentially. Because whatever issues come about with the family or the economy, I know that I have a softer landing and I have some backup. Because if you're the eldest son in the family, and you're the one who's kind of going to be taking care of business, there's no one else after you. So if you fail, then that's it. Like the whole family goes. And can I be the one that's responsible, for that? I don't think I can be, because we're all the results of like 1,000 generations of ancestors. How can I be the one to let things just collapse? And I refuse to be like that.
So it sounds like there's two primary motivators for you. It's your father, your family. It's your family that's giving you the motivation for the financial side of things, so wanting to be comfortable, etc. And I think for me, like since COVID, I've noticed that, that's really taught me that at any time, your job could just be cut. And things could just be cut. And for me, when COVID hit, I was single. It wasn't really too much of a bigger deal. But now having a mortgage, having being married, and having a lot of liabilities in a way, it does make me think more about if it suddenly was dropped. But one of the motivators, or one of the things you were talking about, was how your father had some health issues. Is that the reason why you have essentially gone into health, or was that just a coincidence?
No, it was essentially the reason why I got into health, because obviously I had my own health challenges that I was dealing with whilst I was going through some tough times. And the thing that I realized is that when we take our health for granted, essentially. When we're feeling good, we don't really think about it. But when something's missing and something's not functioning well, that's when we start to suffer. And at that point, we realize, hold on, I wish I could get my health back. I don't care about anything else. I want my health back. And for a man in particular, when you have your health, you can function and perform at a high level. You can go after your goals and be more resilient. You can keep failing over and over again. As long as you have your health, you can keep pushing and trying to build a better life for yourself. But when that health goes, things become a million times more difficult. When my back was hurting, with the 2 herniated discs, all I cared about was just being able to walk normally, not limp around, not have this nerve pain that was constantly like giving me this agonizing pain down my leg. To be able to sleep comfortably, to be able to get in and out of bed comfortably, to sit in a car comfortably, to not just be so vulnerable as a man, and then it's just like, what am I going to do here? I can't really provide the service that I want to my family or my community if I'm broken. And so as a result, I take a lot of health conscious decisions. I'll make sure every single day to have like a regimented routine for years. Like I don't miss my routine. No matter what happens in life, I fit in something to do with health every single day. I've even bought this Whoop recently, which is helping me to improve my sleep and recovery between sessions. And I think we can talk about this as well, which is the concept of collecting data about our bodies and how they're performing, because I think that's very important, again, to feed into the goal of becoming a more productive man and more resilient man that can be relied on. Just being more proactive and collecting data, and not being afraid to like look into the future, and not trying to avoid what's out there. Like you should really try and face all the troubles that are out there. Like what I've noticed among some of my friends is they know they've got a problem with something, but then they kind of avoid it and they kind of park it to one side. Whereas for me, and something that I want to preach to people, is that you should actively look for problems and actively try and solve them. Like this is what I call like threat mitigation, like minimizing the threats in your life. Try and think ahead and see what threats there are. It's the same like running a business. When you have a business, you got to try and look at what threats there are out there that can destroy your business. So, for example, competitor products. What are they doing? Legislation. Are there any trends which might make your product redundant or even worse, banned? For example, um, are there any threats of quality? For example, with Athenase, what are the steps I can take to kind of address those things? What about trends in general? One trend I see that threatens my business is the longevity trend. At some point there'll be a single supplement which slows down your aging so dramatically that it kind of renders the entire supplement category useless. Constantly evaluating these things, and so that's kind of what I do with just like what's happening in the world as well. And which is why my ultimate end goal is, okay, I want to be away from all this chaos. I want to be self-sufficient and reliant on myself rather than the government or an employer, or even a business. I'd rather have a house that I bought and the land that I bought, no mortgage, all of that bought for cash. I'd rather have some farmland where I can grow my own food. I'd rather have a community of people that I trust around me. It's almost like an apocalyptic scenario that I'm thinking in my head, but I'm just like, this is the only way to address most of the reasonable risks out there. And who doesn't want a peaceful life anyway? Like, I think like men who care about their families, like this is where it all comes from. Like, if a man doesn't care about his family, he doesn't pay attention to what's going on in the world. He doesn't care about making more money and these kinds of things. Like, for example, with yourself, you have a mortgage and you've got a partner to think about, children. I don't know if you have children, but one day if you're going to have children, the burden falls onto you because at some point your wife gets pregnant. And are you really going to send her back to work? I think most people do these days. But in my culture, women don't have to work if they don't want to. And in fact, it's beneficial for the entire family and the community at large because someone's there to take care of the children rather than the third party who doesn't really care about them.
I think my wife can't wait to start working, I think. But yeah, you have a very strong sense of providing, don't you, which really comes across in your branding as well. Let's get onto Athenase then. Can you explain to those that have never heard of this, what is Athenase?
Yeah, so it is a food blend. A lot of people can mix it up as a supplement, but it's actually a food blend made with plants, mushrooms, prebiotics, natural extracts. Did I say mushrooms as well? I did, yeah. Did not, yeah. So it's just a comprehensive blend of a variety of different ingredients that you can take to supplement your diet. And the reason why this exists in the first place is because there's some alarming data out there across species, which is the fact that fertility had declined massively over the last 50 years. So sperm counts in men are down by over 50% in the last 50 years. So are testosterone levels. So, for example, the average 22-year-old has the same testosterone levels as a 67-year-old. And this is separate to a natural age-related decline in hormones and fertility. This is a massive crisis that is developing for humanity at the moment. It's our ability to actually reproduce. And we're already seeing across the world how the population growth rate is beginning to slow down. And, when you combine all kinds of things that are going on in the world, you can see very clearly how this is actually a threat to our existence as a species. It sounds like crazy talk, to most people, but there's a genuine issue here. And we even see in animals where their fertility has dropped and they're not reproducing as much as a result. You know, and it's again, the reason why I focus so much on health is because we, apart from taking Athanaze, which isn't scientifically proven to do anything, it's just that some studies suggest the ingredients may be beneficial to our hormones and fertility, and a lot of people swear by the ingredients like shilajit, ashwagandha, ginger, fenugreek, lion's mane mushroom. All these ingredients, people want to take, but they're quite expensive to take individually. So I thought, let me package everything up together into something convenient and affordable for most people. Obviously, COVID taught me that people aren't doing well financially. So if I'm going to create a business, it should be something that's budget friendly, and there's Athanaze. But it's just, we can do a lot to take care of our health and slow down this decline, I think. And instead of people focusing on the minor details around, finding the best optimal diet, or I can't think of any examples off the top of my head, but people should focus on the massive, most impactful things. So, for example, regularly exercising every single day, resistance training, trying to get as much sleep as you possibly can. One thing that using the Whoop taught me is that if you spend 8 hours in bed, doesn't mean you get 8 hours sleep. Oftentimes, Whoop is telling me to spend 10 hours in bed, so I can get 8 to 9 hours of sleep based on my previous day's demands of activity. Those things are quite important. Everyone knows to do these things, but they don't really do it. Even myself, it's easy to give advice, but hard to implement. Have a good diet. Try to eat, out less. Try to eat less packaged foods that have been, contaminated with a variety of different ingredients to preserve the food. But it's just better to, have minimally processed food. Even though Athanaze is processed, I didn't include any fillers in there or preservatives. It's just a food blend which doesn't taste that great, unfortunately. But I want to avoid using flavorings.
As I was mentioning before we started this, that I actually quite like the taste of Athanaze. I particularly when you mix it in. I have it with my oats every single day. What I'm really interested to know though, so you got 16 ingredients, right? How did you choose each one? Was it quite a formulated process to find each one?
Yeah, so I was already aware of quite a few ingredients and the potential impact they have on male health, like for example maca root, ashwagandha, and shilajit. So that's from my own background from studying nutrition and coming across these ingredients. But then my manufacturer as well, they have a new product development team, and I work with them to kind of research more ingredients, and they suggest that these ingredients could complement your current ingredients quite well. For example, they suggested lion's mane mushroom. The concept of mushrooms I wasn't really too familiar with, but they suggested this is quite an interesting ingredient, which a lot of research is suggesting that can play a significant role in people's cognition. And it was kind of like a two-way, a team process where I had some ideas in my head, my manufacturer had some ideas as well, and we kind of just put it all together to create something unique as a result. And to my knowledge, there's nothing like this made for men exactly. There might be a few pills out there with a couple of ingredients combined, but nothing to this extent and to this affordability. So that's kind of how the ingredient formulation came about. But at the same time, I was also consuming maca root myself in powdered form. And that's something that I just wanted to maintain. The bulk of the ingredients are maca root in there. Per serving, I think something like 30%, roughly, you're getting maca root.
What's the quality of the ingredients that are sourced like?
So they go through a quality control process. Most of the ingredients are organic, apart from the lemon, which will be changing this year. It's quite surprising actually to find organic lemon, even though you think it's like so mass produced. But organic lemons was quite tough. And there are a few other ingredients which aren't organic. So they have to meet certain standards in order to be packaged into a product. Alongside that, our manufacturer has to be compliant with various regulations. Myself, with the Salients, we have to be compliant with regulations as well, making sure we're tracking things and creating systems to ensure that if there ever is an issue, that we can identify it and prevent the spread of any particular contamination. Like all food businesses, have to go through this process and register with the local authorities. Um,
And it is simply just those 16 ingredients, and they're blended up, aren't they, and put in
Yes.
the packet. So there's
Dehy-
nothing
yeah.
added.
exactly, yeah, they're
Yeah.
purified, dehydrated, filtered, and then dried and then packaged up into this product. There aren't any like binding agents in there.
Mm. Which is
No-
the advantage then compared to a supplement, isn't it? Because
Exactly.
supplements kind of need something to hold it together.
Exactly. Yeah, and this is the other issue. Like alongside taste, if you're just mixing it in water, like you'll find it's not very soluble. Even if you do mix it quite strongly, you'll start to see sediment forming throughout the drink and at the bottom. This is again because there's no like binding agents inside of there to keep everything together, which is why when you mix it in water, you just drink it fast. And which is why it works best in food because the food itself acts as a binding agent. So it literally is just that. And yeah, I think that was very important to me as well, just to make it a bit more. There's this whole trend. Like, we don't need all these extra ingredients in our food. Out of convenience, fine, every now and then. But if you can minimize these types of ingredients in your body, I think you're playing it safe and it's better for you in the long run. Even though studies suggest small amounts of these ingredients are fine, you just never know, really, in the long run what it's doing.
Yeah, I always think it's not worth taking the risk, really. So often, I mean, there's been quite a lot of examples in the past of things that they thought was safe, and it then turns out actually maybe it's not, or it all depends on. I think quite often what can the issue that I have is that they can call it safe because there's no evidence to say it's not safe, but that doesn't necessarily mean it is safe. Quite interestingly, I just started, actually for the last number of months now, I've started making my own nut milk for this reason, so that I don't have to, there's nothing added into it. I know exactly, like it's just literally water and the nuts. And the downside about doing that is that it's nothing to homogenize it. So you literally see it start to separate. So I can imagine if you were selling the milk and that happened, customers kind of look at that, think, "Ooh, I'm not sure," it doesn't. But it's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
You just shake it and you put it in.
I mean, it's even better that way, but it's just a customer perception. Like customers are so used to seeing pretty products that are just like in the final form. They're just not used to, especially our generation. We're not used to seeing examples of food like that.
I think that's changing. I think that's. I think you make Athenase more future proof if you don't have any binders or fillers or bad oils or whatever in it. Because I know for me, like I look at ingredients on almost everything I buy now, which I never used to do, and I know a lot more people do now because we're much more aware of the issues of these added ingredients. And I think we're much more motivated to get rid of them. You're now getting a lot more companies, kind of like yourself, really, like yours, that are a lot better at looking at the health effects.
There's like literally no benefit. Customers complain quite a lot about the solubility and the taste, but normally you will say, as a business owner, you should listen to your customer feedback and make changes. But I know I'm quite set on this. It's probably never going to change. We might come up with other flavors, but lemon tends to work quite well. Same with dates. The only thing that I am listening to, which is, firstly, customers ask for a scoop. Okay, I add that in. We absorb the cost for that. They have also asked for a more premium version of Athenase. So whilst I made this with the budget friendly mindset in mind, we're going to have higher dosages of certain ingredients. We're going to have more mushrooms in there in particular. Customers have also asked for a women's version, so something that might be supportive of PCOS or menopause, for example. So we're working on that. And tying back into what I was talking about in terms of minimizing threats, and how longevity as a category is also coming up now. I'm introducing a collagen blend with a couple of other additional ingredients inside of it to enhance what's already out there in the market. Because collagen has been seen as quite an impactful supplement in the longevity space. So even though it is only just a protein, the study seems to suggest that just the makeup of collagen's amino acid profile is quite beneficial for joint health. In addition to just having protein in your diet, other forms of protein. So that'll be interesting when we release that. But yeah, everything that I personally resonate with is what comes through the Salients brand. It's why the tagline is "Make your ancestors proud." I want to continue on the legacy of the people that came before me. I can see that there's a big problem in the world that's not really being talked about, and it's interlinked to all kinds of other like socioeconomic issues, which I can't articulate well. Like I have all these different thoughts in my head, and I don't know if other people struggle with this, but when you're absorbing information from social media, you have your own kind of formulation and summary of all the ideas that are going on in the world, all the issues in the world, but you can't really articulate it that well. But I just know the fundamental truth is just take care of yourself, have lots of babies, and then everything will be okay, hopefully.
Yeah, and your branding is obviously massively marketed to men, which I'm very interested to hear more about. Just before we do, I'm quite interested to hear what are some of the main health benefits of Athenaise. What is some of the main reasons why someone may want to buy Athenaise?
Yeah, so if you're looking at the world and you're saying, okay, yeah, I'm suffering with low testosterone, and I want to make a change to my lifestyle and my diet, then you want to start taking Athenaise. It's not scientifically proven again, but a lot of the research suggests that some ingredients can have a positive impact on our hormones and our fertility, and you should consider it more of a experiment rather than a de facto. This is going to be a medicine and fix all my issues. So if you're concerned about your male health, definitely consider it, but always prioritize like living a health conscious lifestyle. And apart from all the usual things like diet, sleep, exercise, some things that I found have been very important, which is for our health, is to take part in competitive activity. So there's a lot of research out there that suggests that taking part in competitive activities and winning produces temporary spikes in our testosterone. So I've made this like a regular activity every single week, like boxing, for example, or even gaming, for example, is a competitive activity with your friends. Do something that actually puts you in a competitive environment. Another thing is similarly to competitive activities is taking risks. So starting businesses or just in general putting yourself out of your comfort zone. So a lot of young men these days don't really approach women, for example, but I think that is something that a lot more men should be doing. And just anything that your body tells you is a bit uncomfortable within reason, like don't jump off a cliff or anything, but for example in the gym, if there's a certain exercise that you absolutely hate doing and you don't enjoy doing it, well then chances are it's actually good for you because it's something hard and puts you out of your comfort zone. Those kinds of things, in summary, will benefit you in your biological health. People don't really understand or recognize the relationship between our environment and our biology and vice versa. I do believe that if you play a more active role in controlling your environment, you can have a positive impact on your health. I've personally gone through low testosterone. It's one of the reasons why I was taking Macroroot in the first place. And that was alongside, training and generally having a good diet. But I wasn't sleeping too well. I was highly stressed out. You have to take a more active role in making your life better. And it just starts with taking more responsibility for your health. And that's really the foundation, the anchor. And then everything else can kind of stem from that.
You've done a very interesting thing, I think, that I've not seen with anyone else, where you've combined gender roles or the importance of being a man and that kind of philosophy with then the health and the product that then helps men's health quite specifically.
I know that there's this whole, and this might be controversial, this topic that we're heading into now, but this whole concept of LGBT, for example, I do believe that whilst our gender is socially constructed, it is derived from our biology. And if we kind of lean into our nature a bit more, we kind of identify our roles in society a bit more clearly, a bit more clear. And from there, if we're in tune with that, that plays a big part in how we feel, our mentality, and how we actually feel in terms of our health. It's all linked together, I think, and it's hard to articulate. And this is very controversial, but only a small percentage of our population can ever be LGBT. You know, we have to have children biologically, and I don't want to I don't want to see this dystopian future come about where we're having children through artificial wombs, and you have to be a certain status to be eligible to take part in that process. You know, it should all be natural conceptions, and we're seeing now a massive trend in the growth of LGBT, even though it's still a relatively small population. It's very prominent now in the messaging of corporations and through politics. We're seeing quite a lot of LGBT messaging everywhere we go. And it's almost like advertising the idea of becoming LGBT to everyone, especially the young children. And whilst I'm accepting of the fact that, you know, to some degree, there is a natural element to being LGBT as well for some people. At the rate it's growing, I think is very. It gives me a very pessimistic view of the future for our species. We have to reproduce, and we have to reproduce faster. Even though at the moment, you know, the riots over the weekend in the UK, for example, the core issue of that is the fact that there are just too many people for the public services in this country, unfortunately.
It's interesting that you say that it's controversial, because actually I get the perception that the whoever they are, the organization or whatever, they give you the perception that everyone is on board with this kind of new ideology, but I don't think they are. I think, as you say, that it is a small population, and I do recognize that there are a number of people that struggle with their gender identity, with their sexuality. The problem, I think, is that we are putting the wrong solution on, and now it's become some kind of propaganda. And what I find really distressing, the most distressing part of it, is when you hear young kids being taught this distortion of their identity, which, you know, like, particularly, I think this is why I really like people like Jordan Peterson, someone we spoke about on your podcast, is that he is trying to give the other side to actually, no, you are a man. This is for society and for your family and for the people around you to thrive, as well as yourself. This is how we need to act. It's a really crazy position we put ourselves in, and it's obviously something that you're really quite passionate about, isn't it? And something that you really, because your branding is really all about it.
My branding and the message is to everyone to adopt your traditional gender roles, because when society has a bit more structure, and we all have structure and identities, then we all kind of have a sense of freedom. And our gender roles and our sex is what kind of gives us a structure from the early age. But when you start mixing and matching and creating new identities and like an endless list of who you are, then you end up being a very confused person. If we're promoting this message of you're not who you are, you can change your gender and have surgery and take puberty blockers, for example, to children at a young age, you're just introducing massive risks into their life when they're already questioning who they are, their role in society. Children are very malleable and don't necessarily understand the long-term consequences of their action because they haven't had experience yet. And that's okay. They're children, they're not meant to have experience. But as we get older, we all see how the world turns out for people who mess with their biology like this. And it's not, in more cases than not, it ends up very poorly for a lot of people. And again, that's why I just preach, whilst you might not be happy with your role as a man, there's a lot of suffering involved because there's no guarantee of success. You might go through a lot of trouble and a lot of pain to provide for your family, and you might fail at the end of it. But that's just the unfortunate nature of life. Nature isn't very kind and safe. It's very dangerous. You see in the animal world, we're just more sophisticated than the animals, and things just don't work out. And if it doesn't work out, well, that's just the role you played in nature, and that's okay. And I don't care that my role as a man is to go out into the world and suffer and take massive risks and then suffer when I don't make it. Just over the past weekend, my entire net worth was in the crypto markets, and the price of cryptocurrencies dropped significantly, like the fastest they've ever done. And I took a massive hit on my savings once again. Not for the first time either. But that's my job as a man, is to take these risks. And I feel terrible at the moment. In the car on the way here, I feel like being sick. I know I don't get motion sickness, but I know that's because of the crypto markets and how much money I lost over the last couple of days. But that's my job as a man, to take the risks and make money, accumulate resources, so that one day my wife doesn't have to go to work and she can spend time with the family. Because now they're promoting the idea that women don't have value, for lack of a better word, unless they go to work and have a career. But who enjoys working? Most people don't enjoy working. Even though they're doing their passion, they want time off, or maybe they'll take a few years off, but they can't. So it's just a weird time that we're living in, and I think return to nature, return to maybe religion and traditional norms is probably beneficial for a lot of people. I think.
You mentioned on your tagline at the front of Athenaeus, it's "Make your ancestors proud." I know we mentioned that briefly earlier. Can you explain why you put that on and what that means?
Yeah, let's see if I can articulate this. There's quite a few meanings to this. Firstly, no one trademarked this because I've trademarked that already in the UK, so you can't use it. I thought it was quite genius when I kind of came up with it. But essentially, I've talked about how there's a lot of threats to the population growth rate. I think the very nature of life is just to continue reproducing and making a better life for your children. And I think that's what my ancestors did. I wouldn't be here if my parents and the grandparents didn't walk. I'm running now and making a better life for myself and my kids one day. So there's that element there, which is, make sure you reproduce, and all the actions you take in your life are, in accordance with that goal in mind, which is why I'm typically against LGBT on a mass scale. I'm very for traditional gender roles because they facilitate the idea of having children. The other idea is just act as if your ancestors are watching you. What would they be thinking of you? I know, like in Christianity, they say, what would Jesus do? In any kind of scenario. What I say in a more broad level, what would our ancestors do? And you should make them proud and kind of work in that mindset. And then finally, just maintain the traditional gender roles of masculinity. We're meant to go out there and suffer, like I mentioned before, and that's just our role in society. So, we're built differently as men. There's a reason why we have testosterone a lot more than women on average, even though it is lower these days for a lot of men. There's a reason why we have so much flowing through us, because we have thicker, gives us thicker skin, muscles, to brave the elements, and be stronger and more resilient. So that's where that comes from.
So what about women then? So you've obviously started with men, and I'm assuming, based on everything you're saying, there's a reason why you started with men.
Yes.
What about women?
So this is the thing. I find it difficult to relate to women naturally because I'm a man. I haven't gone through that lived experience. And that's kind of why I focus more on men, because I can create content that resonates a bit more, because I've been through certain experiences that men might resonate with. But when it comes to women, I kind of struggle to put myself in their shoes, beyond the fact that I just see that, again, quite controversial, but I don't think women necessarily are the happiest in a corporate environment, in the workplace. I think on a long enough time frame, women are probably happier with their families, nurturing their families, because they're much better at it than men. I think men and women complement each other, but there's this whole trend now in society where the messaging is women should be more like men, and I don't necessarily agree with that. I think men need women and women need men, and yeah, whilst a lot of customers, also talk about wanting a women's blend, we are working on it, and doing a lot of research. Of course, just because you don't resonate with the women particularly from a brand point of view doesn't mean you can't cater to their needs from a food blend capacity, and that's kind of what we're doing, like doing a lot of research and trying to formulate something out there in focus groups, speaking with the women. But in terms of the messaging, I think that's best left to someone else who can more empathize with the issues that women are facing.
And of course, women, assuming, can take Athenase. It's not like it's going to mess them up or anything because they're all natural ingredients, aren't they?
It's just a food blend at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's
The
just
only
branding.
thing, and it's a great point that you raised, because I completely forgot about that, which is like, it's a common answer to for customer service, which is yes, women can take Athenase, but breastfeeding women and pregnant women should be avoiding Athenase, just purely because you don't know what it's doing to your hormones. Because I've had my blood test results published, and I saw significant improvement in them beyond just a seasonal change. There's a year-on-year change, highest I've ever seen.
In testosterone mainly, or
Yes, free testosterone. Estradiol also increased, but that's a natural consequence of testosterone increasing, because your body will convert a certain amount of testosterone into estrogen anyway. And like the full blood test report is available for anyone who wants to kind of message customer service. They'll provide it to you. So yeah, like whilst it's not scientifically proven, like it did have an impact on me and has an impact on a lot of customers. Like you see so many reviews, some crazy reviews as well. I'm like, this didn't really happen to you. Maybe it's placebo, but someone mentioned something about their 100-year-old mother or something that they gave it to and it cured her disease or something. I'm like, no, this was like highly unlikely that this happened. And people come up with all kinds of, I don't know, maybe placebo effects.
Well, you don't know, I guess.
I guess you don't know.
It could have had an impact, or it could have been a coincidence. Obviously, there's no studies to say either way, but it's an interesting thing to note, because obviously that's where research starts. Is that you hear these stories and you think, okay, we'll hypothesize that perhaps Athenase could do this. Right, let's do a research paper to see whether this is true or not.
Interesting, yeah, that's a very good point actually. And I do encourage people in general just to, take a more active role in monitoring and experimenting on themselves. So, for example, a simple thing that you can do is just take a blood test every 6 months or a year. It's hard to do on the NHS, but if you can go private, you can do it. That way you can track various different biomarkers like your hormone levels, for example, and your organ function. Not even just from an experimental point of view to see if dietary changes work or not, or your supplements work or not, but also just knowledge is power. Like going back to the point about mitigating against threats, if you're collecting data on your body, and sorry to go back a bit more, your body often doesn't present symptoms for a period of time after having some sort of issue. So, for example, like the first time people experience symptoms of a heart attack, heart disease, is a heart attack itself. Most people, like you don't experience any symptoms up until that point for most people, and it's just like a shock to the body. So I imagine that the same thing could be true for a lot of diseases. But if you have the ability to track what's going on inside of your body, then that gives you a massive advantage in determining whether or not you're suffering with something before anything serious happens, and you have a better chance of treating it early. Like if I saw my blood test results one day, or 6 months time, and something was completely whacked, like my testosterone just went to zero. Well, that's not going to happen, but if it does, and I know that I need to do something, and maybe I didn't have any symptoms straight away, but I know I need to investigate this. Same thing for my Whoop. This is constantly tracking various different biomarkers and metrics, and like printing them out over a chart for me. And if I ever have some sort of condition, I can now present the data from my blood tests over a historical period and from my Whoop device over a historical period, and present it to my doctor and tell them this is what I used to be like, but this is what I am now. but this is what changed. And it gives the doctors a better ability to make decisions about your treatment. Because speed is everything, especially now with the NHS and how difficult it is to access public services for critical health issues. People die in A&E, or people die because they're waiting for treatment or diagnosis. And the more responsibility that you can take about measuring these things and be proactive, the better chance of survival you have, and the better able you are to now provide for your family and have children and continue on that legacy. Again, like we just can't be the last ones. I know people these days aren't having children. Most people are unmarried now under the age of 30, whereas before, most people were married by the time they were 30. Most people are now buying houses in their late 30s, whereas before they were buying it in their 20s. Most people are having children in their late 30s now, or I'm not too sure exactly about that, but in the 30s now, if at all. More women than ever are childless in their 40s. More men than ever are virgin in their 30s. And it's just, a lot more responsibilities needed to be taken by people who.
Yes, society is changing a lot, isn't it? And we often call it progress, but we know that it's it's a bit of both, I think, isn't it? That there are certain aspects, like for example, Whoop is progress. It's given you the ability to be able to measure something, but then we've got other aspects that are certainly something we can't call progress, and people tend to have a different view overall as to whether we're in progress or we're regressing. But I really like the idea of measuring aspects of your health, because if you're going to do anything for your health and you can't measure whether it's changing or of any benefit, then it's really hard to keep on going. For example, I was taking cod liver oil for quite a long time. I've only just recently stopped. And the reason why is because it's so expensive to get a really good high quality one. And I can't notice any difference. And if I can't notice any difference, it's like, should I continue? But doing these blood tests and having measurements is definitely a helpful way of doing that.
It's very subjective, though, isn't it, when you're making that decision? And I take fish oil, but I make sure to get, from memory, it's been so long now, but I combine DHA and EPA, the fatty acids. I'm getting something like over 2 grams per day. But if you go to your local supermarket, a single pill, also a capsule, whatever it's called, has something like 100 milligrams and like 900 milligrams of filler. And it's just like, why am I taking this? I have to take like 20 of these capsules, which is like half the pack, to get the studied, measurable dose of impact on, heart health and all kinds of cognitive effects. But I've been taking fish oil for coming up to 12 years now. The same brand is Now Foods Omega-3. It has 500 milligrams of DHA and 250 milligrams of EPA per gelatinous capsule. Just take 3 of those per day, and that's what I've been doing. I haven't really measured anything, but I saw the study a long time ago, where it's like you need around 1.5 grams of combined DHA and EPA to observe any difference over a multi-month period.
Yeah, certainly. If you're going to take supplements, you want to make sure you're taking enough of it and you're taking the best quality. The idea of going to supermarkets are notorious for selling low quality, cheap supplements. If your supplements are costing just a couple of pounds, you're probably just wasting your money, or even worse, you might even be doing a detriment to your health.
Absolutely,
because of the
fillers.
Exactly. So we're nearing to the end, but one of the things that I really want to ask is, what would you say is your top practical tip for being more of a better man, particularly maybe speaking to teenagers, those that are feeling a little bit lost? Given your experience, what is your best advice for young men?
There's a lot that I could say, and I don't know if I can narrow it down to one thing. I would say the first thing is acceptance, and realizing that life isn't easy and life's actually quite harsh and cruel. Particularly for young men who might be physically feeling invisible and lost and don't really know where to go, and who to look up to. I would say get comfortable with the fact that your journey is going to be a multi-year journey. For example, it took me 18 years to have my first success, really. And during that time, I had 9 failures. And it's something that you have to get comfortable with, the long journey and the constant failures. A lot of the times, you're going to be going through difficult moments where your life might be falling apart around you, but you're the only one who can create that sense of stability. And it's just this mindset of taking responsibility in your life and not seeing things as being out of your control. So if if you're going into your job or you're in your family and you're seeing problems, don't just have the role of being a bystander. Take on more responsibility and try and solve problems, because then that will give you a bit more clarity and comfort, knowing that, okay, if as long as I'm willing to try, then and do my best, then that's all I can really do. And there's a lot of peace that comes from that. To young men as well, like especially in this digital world, I know that they're probably struggling a lot with like the average man or the average teenage man is probably struggling a lot with getting attention from women, for example. Just know that these are weird times, and the only way to get through it is just to go through it and build yourself up as that masculine role model you kind of envision in your head, like become that superhero type man for like your family and community. So, work on acquiring more resources, work on your physical, stature, like go to the gym, network, and all of that just requires you to be disciplined and creating that routine, because you'll find that you have the same routine for years on end and eventually become second nature when you're going after your goals. And that's how it should be. It should not be an effort to get up in the morning and go to the gym. It should be something that you just do now. It's just that's just what you do now, because it's the only way that you're going to get the result that you want in your life. Just recognizing that you've got to build yourself up and prepare for everyone to lean on you for support. So yeah, not really helpful. I mean, not really that positive. Like, it's giving everyone a pessimistic view, but that's really what works for me so far, and I'm still on that journey. And I can't see it changing. But I can say a lot more that I'm glad that I went through the sacrifice.
Yeah, you've gone through a lot of failures and you keep on going. So I think your story has demonstrated perseverance, which I find very inspiring. And hopefully others have also found that really inspiring as well, because you can get to where you want to get. Just because you've experienced one failure along the way doesn't mean you should give up on that journey. Where can people find Athanase, and how can they find out more about you?
Good question. Well, you can go to the website salients.co. So that's SALIENTS.co. We're also on Instagram at the Salients, and TikTok, but we don't really use TikTok too much. And yeah, you can purchase Athanase on Amazon, or you can purchase it on our website. If you purchase it on our website, you'll be eligible for like longer term discounts through loyalty. On Amazon, you can purchase it as well, but you get subscriber discounts if you want to subscribe.
Yeah, and I've been taking Athanase for almost a year now, and I can really recommend it. I really like. Yeah, I think as I mentioned earlier, I maybe a bit unusual in the sense that I actually quite like the taste of it, and I love the convenience. We talked about that before. That I think one of the things you offer is convenience, because of course you can get these ingredients in many different places, but you do a great job in formulating together, blending it up, making sure it's good quality, organic, etc., and then distributing it at a really good price. Yeah, thank you so much for coming down.
No, thank you, Stephen.
And you were part of the reason why I started this podcast, so thank you for that as well.
No, I'm actually so impressed. You're definitely like the type of man that I want to, having like my message out to, because you listened and you actually actioned something straight away.
Yeah.
That's the right mindset, speed of execution.
I was literally researching on the train ride back from when I met you in London. I was just researching like, okay, how can I make this work? Because when I went on your podcast, it was the first podcast in this style that I'd done. And I was just thinking, I really like this. And I got a good opportunity to do it. And I just love how I can get people of different experiences and knowledge and stories like yourself on that can give more knowledge than I can just by myself. So yeah, thanks again, Saj.
No, thank you, Stephen.
Yeah, thank you.
Cheers. Take care.